thanks so much for signing up and coming along to this webinar. I'm going to talk a bit about myself, talk a bit about the civil service, talk about some of the good stuff that goes on in the civil service, and then hopefully, as Bronwyn and Andrew intimated, we've got some time for some chat and some discussion around what I've talked about, and maybe stuff that is just on your mind that I haven't touched on. So, this is the presentation. It's working for the civil service, and as I was introduced earlier, my name's Paul Downer. I work for the Government Digital Service. I'll expand on what that is a bit later, if that's okay with everybody. But thought it'd be interesting just to talk about myself just quickly. There's a lovely picture of me taken about a year ago, more than a year ago, when we all used to work in offices and cram ourselves on trains to get in and out of London, which I'm sure you guys experience, getting on often on buses and whatever other mode of transport that you had to get to and from work at school. So as I say, my name's Paul. I'm 56 years of age. I have been a proud civil servant for 37 years of those 56 years. I'm a dad. I've got 4 children, and I currently live in northwest London, in Harrow. I was born and bred in a place called Ladbroke Grove. I hope there are some out there that are aware of the place or know the place, but was born and brought up around there, and spent my formative years going to school in Shepherd's Bush, just past in a school in the White City Estate, which school is still there and the estate is still there. Spent my formative years, as I say, in and around Shepherd's Bush, Portobello Road, Harlesden, if you know that part of London, and left school back in the early 80s with 5 GCSEs. Wasn't the best performer at school, I have to be completely honest. Flunked and failed my A-levels. I applied for 3 A-levels, and much to my disgust of my parents, I wasn't successful at all. Couldn't go to university because I didn't have any A-levels, and then got myself a job as a schoolkeeper, working in a school for a period of about a year. And during that period of time, I really sat down and tried to get my act together and try to think about the things that I wanted to do, and I came up against 2 options really. One, I was lucky enough to apply and be successful and be offered a job working for a bank, and that was in the early 80s, and it was quite a prestigious job then. Or the other was to work in a county court. Didn't know anything about county courts, and it was to be something called a civil servant, and I didn't really know what a civil servant was. But what I sensed was that banking was all about money and some of the challenges around adding up and taking away, which was always a bit of a challenge for me. And the civil service seemed to be about serving people and taking people, holding their hand through some pretty difficult times if you work in the court service especially. So I chose that as a path, and that's where I've stayed for the last 37 years. During that course of those 37 years, which I don't regret, actually, many moments, if any at all, working for the civil service. But I've moved through the career structure. I'm now what's known as a digital delivery advisor. And that person, my role is to work across all government departments to advise them on their digital delivery of whatever service that they want to deliver. And I can touch on some of those services later. But I would say it's a very responsible job. It's an exciting job for me because I can move in and out of different teams. I can, be discussing. There's 25 government departments. I can be talking to a range of those government departments throughout the day. I get to make decisions about how we roll services out, how we help the citizen, how we help the public. So for me, over those 37 years, I've sort of grown as an individual. I've been able to work in and out of Whitehall. And when I talk about Whitehall, I mean being able to work across the road from number 10, to walk in and out of Parliament, to go around the House of Lords. Those sorts of things, which for me were, when I was a kid growing up, was certainly a place which was quite distant for me. I've been able to work in different parts of the country. So I've worked in Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Newcastle, Wales. I've done a stint in Wales. I've done a stint in the north of Ireland. I've done a stint in Scotland. I've even done some work in Croatia. And that's all been as a result of my work that I've done as an individual working in government. And as I say, I work for a digital service at the moment. That's a choice I made 2 years ago. I built those digital skills up over the last 5 to 10 years. But if you were to go back to me 35 years ago, 36 years ago, we didn't even know what digital was, and I didn't really have a concept of digitization. So I've deliberately taken some of those choices and options to move on. So, oh, it's not moving. I seem to have a frozen screen. Sorry about this, guys. Bear with me for 1 minute. So, let's just talk quickly about what the civil service. Sorry, let's talk about what the civil service is. And I like to describe the civil service very much as if we're watching a play or a film, or somewhere where there's a production, and the front of house production is usually the actors, and the actors in my world will be politicians. They're going to be the people that are elected to serve on behalf of the constituencies and the rest of the country on the basis of that manifesto and their commitments. Well, for an actor to get out there and to do the work that they've pledged to do and been elected to do, they need people to write a script. They need people to prepare the stage. They need to be people that will be there applying the makeup and making sure that the doors are open and selling the tickets. And that's the way that I like to describe the civil service and civil servants. We're the people that make things happen. We're non-political, so we're not part of any political organisation, and I've worked for different political governments over the last 37 years. What we're charged with doing is accepting that people have been elected to deliver a set of programmes and a set of policies, and we get out and we deliver them. We help develop the policy, we help tease out the intricacies about what a minister wants. We start to develop the training around what that looks like. We develop the digital products. We'll be talking to members of the public. We'll be talking to communities about what these impacts feel like, and therefore start to shape it as we go. There's 480,000 civil servants currently in the UK, so we're one of the biggest employers in the UK. We cover, as I've said before, 25 different government departments. They can be from stuff such as HMRC, which is a huge Majesty's Revenue and Customs, which deal with taxation. DWP, another huge department that deals with people's pensions, people's work credits. You know, we work from that basis, but we've also go down to the smaller departments such as mine, say only 1,000 people that sit behind gov.uk and all of its digital services behind it. And when we talk about, you know, what civil servants do, there'd be very few, if anybody, on this call that doesn't touch a government service, that doesn't work or endorse or work with people that are civil servants. And you know, I've got a little bit of a screenshot there of some of the areas that we work in that you may or may not be aware of. So, for instance, if you're looking to get a driving license, you'll be contacting the civil service to do that. If you want to, if you want to get a passport to go abroad, civil service will help you do that. If you need to to claim a benefit, a civil service will be doing that. If you've got running a CAF, for instance, or an organisation where you're preparing food, civil servants will be working with you to make sure that the food that's being prepared is against certain standards. We're even working and supporting schools. We're not teachers, you know, we're not part of the teaching staff, but we'll be developing policies that help teaching staff deliver what goes on for students and for teachers. There's a picture of a prison. We work in prisons. We have prison officers, but we also have administrators that work behind the scenes in prisons. So as you can see with that, we cover such a wide variety of different disciplines within the country. There is something wrong with my apologies. So that's what most civil servants do. As I say, a range of different disciplines. I thought it'd be useful just to sort of sketch what I do, really, and give you a view of my day in a life. It sounds a bit silly, but no one day is the same for me. And as a digital delivery advisor, I quite enjoy that. And what I mean by the fact no one day is the same, I will have a range of different disciplines and meetings set up throughout the day. Most of them will come out of meeting with cabinet secretaries or ministers or politicians or leaders within different departments who will be asking for a service, will be asking me to advise, will be asking me if they did X, And I'll touch on some of the examples a bit later on. But if they have a particular idea of something they want to deliver, how can we make that happen? So I'll be called upon to work with senior members of the judiciary, senior cabinet secretaries, to start to develop what that might look like. I always have a team catch-up. So usually about 9:30, 10 o'clock, I work in a team of 12 to 20 people. And every day we will catch up, first of all, to make sure that we're feeling okay, because in this current climate, we're having to keep in touch and make sure that everyone's feeling okay, but also to make sure that we know what each other's doing for the day. Today, I then went on had a session with user researchers. So as we develop services, as we start to support the communities, we start to have contact with what we call users, but as people, the people that work in the community. So when we develop something that needs to be delivered, so for instance, there's some work we're currently doing on vulnerable people and making sure vulnerable people get packages during COVID, which supports them. We've had a session this morning where we've spoken to those individuals. We used to bring them into government buildings or go out to meet them. But what we've done is we're now doing that on Zoom, is to talk through what it was that they need from the government, what they need that will help them overcome their challenges. So I've had a session with them today, which identifies what it is that they need. I then had a further session with developers. So lots of technical developers that I'm working with, but also policy individuals to help me start to agree what the priorities look like. So speaking to users today about their need, then bringing that together and working with developers to say, well, these are my priorities now because this is the way that the community I'm working with has directed me towards. I've had a network meeting, I call them network meetings, but the civil service is very proud of its position in terms of supporting underrepresented groups and members of staff who come from underrepresented or disadvantaged groups. So that may be individuals who are black and ethnic minority, might be LGBT, from the LGBT community, maybe from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. We have internal network meetings with individuals to check in on them, make sure they're okay. And again, it's for staff just to talk about some of the impacts on them. So we're really sort of keen to sort of promote that. And then I finished just before I had this caught up with Bronwyn and Andrea, was a meeting with the Scottish government, the Welsh government and the Northern Irish government to start talking about EU transition and what's happened since Brexit and how the borders are working and what we need to do to support. So you get a sense there of I'm doing quite a few different things on a day-to-day basis. Some of that is obviously because of my grade, because I'm at a very senior grade, but some of that is because of the position, the job that I've chosen to do. So what makes a typical civil servant? When I was growing up, it may still be the cliche, but we always saw civil servants as bowler-hatted, usually white men, walking up and down Regency Street with a furled umbrella and a big satchel and looking very stern. I've never met anybody that wears a bowler hat who's a civil servant, but that's certainly not the case now. There is no such thing as a typical civil servant. We work in just about every town and city in Britain, and we come from a range of backgrounds, every background you can think of. We're unique because we look exactly like the workforce, the communities we represent. I think one of the driving things that we, certainly over the last 10 to 15 years, we want to encourage individuals who use our services to be part of the government organisation and the civil service. We believe that people that are impacted by the service we deliver, they know better than anybody else how we can change and develop and transform things. So we are continue to push to want a civil service that reflects the societies it serves. I can't see you all on camera, but I would say that means people like yourself, people that are living and growing and developing in the UK. Touched on a bit earlier when I talked about networks, but we are committed to diversity inclusion. We believe that public services are for everybody and they need to adapt for the rich diversity of Britain and its cities and towns at the moment. We believe that if we respect and value difference, this will help ensure that our policies and services reflect the needs of the people that we serve. You know, I've been in the civil service for 35 years. I know what it's like to deliver a service for somebody, and not even to talk to the individuals that we're delivering the service to or for. And inevitably, we fail when we put those services out because people don't know how to use them, they don't understand them, and therefore what we get is a period of services where people just feel completely disconnected to government and the civil service. We believe, I firmly believe, civil service needs a workforce that's the very best possible mix of existing and, of course, because you're on the call, but of course future talent. So I want everybody that's on this call to really think about whether this is this is an option for you. We would value your application, would value you inquiring about where you could take this further. What would a career in the civil service offer me? You know, that's always a big question. We're in a very competitive market, and you know we do our best to compete with the best. So for us, you know, I've talked about my life. I know that there have been decisions that I've made in my life, current job, previous job, where I've had the opportunity to make a difference to people's lives in the UK. But I've touched on work that I've done abroad. I've done in Croatia, for instance, which I know has made a difference to some of the people that have used the justice system in Croatia. They won't know it's me, but I know that I've gone out there and made that difference. It's a job that gives you learning opportunities and career development as you go. I've talked about 25 different government departments of different sizes. I've worked in at least 15 of those. I've been able to move across, up and down through different government departments. You know, there is a recognised career structure. My oldest daughter is a civil servant. She's worked in the civil service for the last 9 to 10 years. She's moved very swiftly through 6 grades in 9 to 10 years. And you know, and that has been about her attitude, her application, and about moving and identifying, you know, opportunity. You know, again, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You know, financially, we can't compete with the big banks. We can't compete with the big, you know, financial houses. Our average salary is 28k a year. Starting salary is 19k a year. That's not, you know, that's not the greatest offering, but you'll find those 480,000 civil servants aren't just motivated by that end pot, you know, that pot of money. You know, we do it because we want to support communities. We do it because we come from communities that need that support. But we also recognise that there's flexible working hours. So, for instance, you know, you can work 37 hours is your maximum, but you can work below that depending on what your team requires. You don't have to work 5 days a week. I work 4. You know, other people I know work 2 to 3 days a week. We've got a comprehensive employee benefits, including, you know, really good pension scheme. Go out there and look at other pension schemes. You know, they're not as well enumerated as a civil servant is. And of course, we operate flexi leave, parental leave. You know, so we've got a good caring ethos within the civil service, which I think, again, is attractive for people. And I was certainly one of those individuals that I never thought I was looking for a career when I went into the civil service. But as I've been drawn into and been excited by the work that I've done, I've really started to identify that, of course, money is a drive for us, but also there are other benefits to working within the civil service. Very quick slide about how to join the civil service. There's a range of ways to join the civil service. There's the usual direct job entry. So, you know, if you go on gov.uk, civil service jobs, you will find a list of jobs. You can set up a job alert that will alert you every time there's a civil service job that comes up. Our minimum entry is 5 GCSEs equivalents. One of those has to be English, one of those needs to be maths, and you need to be a British citizen. So you can enter, as I did, as a direct job entrant, you know, and you'll find yourself again moving quite quickly through. 2 of my children, one I've mentioned, one I haven't, but both of them do not have a degree and entered the civil service via a direct job entrance. So, you know, it's not just for people that that may have gone to university, because for some people university is not their choice, isn't the way that they want to build a career. What you've got in there is an apprenticeship scheme. So we've got a number of apprenticeship schemes which are currently we're redeveloping. But in a nutshell, they're for people that decide not to go to uni. We aim them at 16-year-olds and above. You've got to have 5 GCSEs, and it's usually an apprenticeship for a short period of time, for a year or so, for you to get used to, a different discipline within the civil service. And we work across different themes. So, for instance, we have apprenticeships in digital, finance, policy, business, a whole range of different apprenticeships if people want to just join for that initial year. And of course, you can convert that apprenticeship to a bigger job as you go through the service. We've got a fast stream program that is for graduates. That's a recognised and highly competitive fast stream program. It covers a period of 2 to 4 years. You have to apply. Again, you'll apply via gov.uk, but that will allow you to come in and move very swiftly through different disciplines and different grades. It's a period of 2 to 4 years. You move around the jobs every 6 months. So you'll move from different jobs depending on where where you see your career path. And at the end of those 4 years, you either decide to leave the service because that's not something you continue want to do, but you've built skills up, or actually what you might do is you might want to convert that to being a permanent civil servant. And again, we support individuals through that. There's a period of student placements. So we've got summer diversity internment programs, again, for people that are either in their first or second year at uni, that come from a diverse and underrepresented groups, usually set them up for an intense internship for 6 to 9 weeks in a government department. You'll be paid usually about £300 a week minimum during that period. But again, it's an idea for you just to get used to the civil service and to see if it's something that you want to work within, what you want to get that ethos along to do so. So again, a range of different options for individuals who may be interested. A couple of top tips from me, really, stuff that I've learned as I've gone along the way as the civil servant I am. I think there's a lot. It's really important to be yourself in whatever job you decide to do. Be authentic. People respond really well to authenticity. People can smell the BS, for want of a better phrase, certainly within organisations. So if you're feeling vulnerable and or you're not sure about what it is that you've got in front of you to do, be open, be honest about it. Be resilient. I've had to draw on my resilience over the 37 years that I've worked. But remember, resilience just doesn't come from yourself. It comes from a group. It comes from a team. So never feel alone when you're trying to draw on your resilience. Talked about earlier, be honest. If you don't always have the answers, I've always worked along the basis that I don't mind being the stupid person in the room that puts the hand up just to say, not quite sure what you're talking about. Especially some organisations you'll work for, there's lots of jargon that sometimes just goes over the head of the newest person sitting in the room. So if you don't know something, if you're an introvert, it's very difficult to put your hand up, but find a way of getting those answers. Be the person that you want the organisation to be. I've worked in a number of civil service jobs that haven't reflected my values when I worked in to work there. And I've had to bring my values in to start to encourage individuals to look at the way they behave, perform, work, in the way that works for me and works for the wider team. So, bring yourself to work. One of the other tips I was thinking about just before I came on, and I think it's really undervalued, but be kind to people, be aware. I think it's a bit of a lost quality sometimes. But, we all need a bit of a helping hand. We all need a bit of support. So again, to really work through the job and really support the job that you're working, be kind. I just touched on one quote, and I'll finish on one quote from Maya Angelou, who's a poet. And she said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that, for me, probably encapsulates why it's so important to sort of engage in whatever job you decide to do. Hopefully it might be the civil service, but it's not, whatever job you decide to do. And I think that's me. Thank you.